The City Museum right here in St. Louis is known around the world now. It is definitely a St. Louis must-do. Old people, young people, enjoy its creativity and wonder. Old people and young people get lost in its corridors in more ways than one. Wow is the language spoken there. Perhaps the coolest thing about it is that it's full of St. Louis rejects. Everything in the place was in a junk pile somewhere at some time, or at least destined to be. Everything from school buses to cornices of destroyed buildings. It itself is an old, dilapidated building that was taken over by this now called City Museum. And it is a building full of a city's rejects. Many of us never recognized that the creative genius behind the place was something of a reject himself. Bob Casserly, who died too soon for St. Louis this past week, graduated at the very bottom of his class. He didn't fit in with the established ways of any institution. In many ways, a reject. Yet look what that reject did with all those rejects. Have you ever felt like a reject yourself? Most all of us, I suspect, could say at one point or another, been there, done that. Most likely it was, or is, or will be that moment in most of our lives when we fell totally in love with someone and the love was not returned. Few things hurt more. Next to the questions of faith, the most recurring issue that comes up here at the CSC is the question of how to survive a breakup. How to make it through the awful experience of an unrequited love. It is an experience that just plain old hurts. There's no easy way around it. The experience of loving someone very much, of being in love, of being crazy about someone, and not having that love returned in kind, just is one of the hardest human experiences to suffer. And while it happens most frequently with young people, it happens really to all of us at any age. Yes, I'm here to tell you, old people fall in love too. All of us have the experience of unrequited love. In our desire to make it stop hurting sometimes when that happens for us, we do all kinds of crazy stuff, from drinking too much to desperately trying to control this other person, to ruminating constantly over and over, trying to figure out what happened, what we could do differently to get them back, to even despair itself. People currently experiencing an unrequited love deserve our prayers and our support. It is hard to stay free. It is hard to stay healthy. It's hard to stay loving when it hurts that much. And the experience of rejection is not just tied to romantic love and the intensity that goes with that. Anybody who's ever loved anyone intensely for any reason in any way can know what it's like. Parents, you've had a son or daughter turn their backs on you, treat you like trash, not return the compliment, not return the I love you, not return a thank you. When you've tried so hard to let them know how much they mean to you, how much they matter, nothing seems to be working. You know it. You at work with your coworker who you tried to be really kind to, even go out of your way for, tried to be just with, and then they sort of just turn their back to you. Even a neighbor for whom you maybe had a special affection just didn't seem to have any back. It feels like rejection, and we feel like rejects ourselves. We can pour out the love and just not get anything back, and they tell us they do not love us like that, if at all. God knows that experience. Today's gospel, echoing the prophet in the first reading, tells the story of how God so loved Israel, so loved his own people, so loved us, that he had this vineyard, which is us, that he treasured, that he spent everything to make his own, and then he spaded it and he fertilized it, he cleared out the stones, he planted the choicest vines, he built a watchtower, he hewed out the winepress, but nothing, no response, no return to this great love, an unrequited love. And then God asks with great lament, what more was there to do that I have not done? Isn't that a question we could all have asked in that relationship we longed for that never came to be? What more was there to do that I have not done for you? What else could I have said? What else could I have done to show you how much you mean to me, to show you how much you matter? In his desperation to communicate with us just how in love God is with us, God sends prophet after prophet to tell us. But when we would not listen and we still could not hear, he took his own flesh and blood and sent it to live among us, his own Son. And even his own Son becomes another reject. A God rejected. That's who we worship here on Sunday morning. A God rejected, and we have been the rejecter ourselves of this God. A God rejected. My fellow rejects, we have all been rejected like that. And God is always being rejected. And his Jesus was a reject from the get-go. God knows this experience of rejection. God knows the experience of unrequited love. God knows it. It is part of the mystery we call God. It is a painfully real thing. And these texts from our church, the church gives us this morning, make that too clear. Not only does God know this, but that experience of unrequited love, that experience we all dread with every fiber of our being, God uses rejection to remake us and to remake the world. As Matthew writes, the stone rejected by the builder becomes the keystone, the capstone, the cornerstone of the entire structure. Do you see? This experience that feels like rejection from this one we want to love us more than any other in the world, this experience we all fear most, becomes the keystone of our own lives. That on which everything else hinges. That which holds everything together for us. It is what God uses to make us great. A reject who holds together museum full of rejects. Because in that experience of unrequited love, wherever it comes from, we know God. And God knows us. God gets this. It happens all the time to God who loves us, who's crazy about us, who's given everything for us, more than we could ever need, and more than anything we could have ever imagined, but whose love you and I have rejected again and again and again. This love that is God is unrequited love. That experience of rejection is how God comes very, very close to you. And if we deal with it straight up, if we don't run from it or numb it too quickly, God will come very, very close to us in that. It can transform us. It can bring us deeper. And it can remind us, like nothing else, it can remind us that the love we're looking for out there was right here all the time. Inside of us. It was there all the time, waiting to be named and claimed. It's not out there in somebody else. In the end, it's right here. Just look what that reject God has done with all those rejects. Us. It's no wonder that it can be for us the keystone. Just a few miles from here, there's a museum full of rejects, created by a man who was something of a reject himself once. And it has become the source of joy and wonder for a whole city, just like us.